Hello and welcome to our 7th lesson on B4. In the previous lesson we looked at the structure of the leaf. Today we need to have a think about other parts of a plant. So to start us off, I would like you to have a think about the question that's on the board, which says, which two types of cell transport food, water and minerals to all parts of a plant? Pause the video now and have a go at this question. Okay, so you should have had a go at this question, you should have had a think about it. There's two types of transport system inside of a plant. There's what's known as the xylem and the phloem. The xylem carries water and minerals from the roots around the plant, whereas the phloem transports dissolved sugars, which are produced in the leaf during photosynthesis around the plant. Vascular bundles in plants are arranged with a xylem on the inside and a phloem on the outside. So today's title, in your books, you need to write, as you would do any other lesson, moving substances in plants. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to describe what the xylem and phloem do inside of a plant. You should be able to explain how the xylem and phloem are adapted to do their jobs within a plant. And you should be able to explain how water uptake by a plant can be measured. We're going to focus on these first two. This third learning objective you may have to do in another lesson. So, the first thing we need to say, and we need to say it, it'd help if my pen was plugged in. First thing we need to say, and it is a very important point, so we're going to write it in red, is that plants don't have a heart or blood, but they still need to transport nutrients, water and minerals to every cell. So we can say plants do not have a heart / blood, comma, but they still need to transport nutrients, water and minerals to every cell. Okay? In order to do this, plants have two transport systems. So in order to do this, plants have two transport systems. And then we can put ... Okay? The first transport system that we need to talk about is what's known as the xylem. The xylem. Z-Y-L-E-M. Xylem. Now, the xylem can be defined as cells specialised for transporting water through a plant. So the xylem, in fact, we'll say, is a tissue made of cells specialised for transporting water through a plant. Okay. Now, the water on a plant is collected in the roots and transported to different cells through the xylem. So we can say water is collected from the soil via the roots and transported to the plant cells via the xylem. So it's through the xylem that water collected in the roots is transported to each cell. Now there's an important point I want to add here, and this is the first time I've ever mentioned it with a class, but it seems to be a misconception that everybody mentions year on year. The leaf of a plant does not absorb water. The only part of a plant that can absorb water is the roots, okay? So I'm just going to put in red, I'm going to put it in brackets, we'll say the roots are the only part of a plant that absorbs water, comma, the leaf cannot absorb water. Okay, water can only be lost from the leaf. You cannot absorb water through the leaf. Okay. We have all seen the xylem of a plant. Wood is a example of xylem. So the wood of a tree is the example of a xylem. So we can just put underneath here that wood of a tree is xylem tissue. Okay, now if you think of the wood of a tree, it feels quite dead, and that's because the xylem cells that make up the xylem tissue are all dead cells that contain a molecule known as lignin, which makes them waterproof and rigid. So we can say, in fact I'm going to put it in red because it's important, the cells of the xylem are dead and have lignin, L-I-G-N-I-N, in their cell wall to make them rigid and waterproof. So the cells that make up the xylem are actually dead. They're not living cells. These cells have been killed and they have a molecule known as lignin added to them, which makes them waterproof. We're not going to go into that in any more detail now, but if you decide to do A-level biology, we do that in quite a lot of detail. Now, the movement of water through the xylem is known as a transpiration stream. So transpiration, it's the worst I ever, transpiration stream. Now we can define a transpiration stream as the movement of water through the xylem of a plant. the movement of water through the xylem of a plant. Okay, so that's pretty much all we need to know for the xylem. So plants don't have a heart or blood, but they still need to transport nutrients, water and minerals to every cell. In order to do that, plants have two transport systems. The first one we've spoken about is the xylem. The xylem is a tissue made of cells specialised for transporting water through a plant. The water is collected from the soil via the roots and transported to the plant cells via the xylem. The roots are the only part of a plant that collects water. Water does not enter a plant through the leaves. The wood of a tree is an example of xylem tissue. It's hard, it's dead. This is because the xylem cells are actually dead and they have lignin in their cell wall to make them rigid and waterproof. A transpiration stream is a term used for the movement of water through the xylem. So, let's have a think about the second one now. If we can refresh this screen, send it back to black, and we can put number 2, the phloem. The phloem. P-H-L-O-E-M. Phloem. Now, the phloem can be defined as a tissue specialised for transporting sugars from the leaves to other parts of the plant. So the phloem is a tissue specialised for transporting sugars from the leaves to the other parts of the plant. Now, sugars are made in the leaf through photosynthesis, but those sugars then have to be transported to cells so that they can use them. So we can say sugars are made in the leaf by photosynthesis and transported around the plant to cells that need them. Okay. Now, the phloem cells are placed end on end and they have holes in them like a sieve, okay? So we can say that phloem cells are placed end on end and have, or which have even, sorry, which have holes in them like a sieve. And I'm not sure if I have a picture on the PowerPoint. No, I don't. Okay, but they have holes in them like a sieve. Now, the phloem cells have cytoplasm, but no other organelles. So we can say phloem cells have cytoplasm, but no other cells. Okay? Sorry, no other organelles even. No other organelles. For this reason, each phloem cell has a companion cell that has all of the organelles for them. So we can say each phloem cell has a companion cell with which it shares organelles. Pardon me. With which it shares organelles. Okay? The movement of sugars through the phloem is called translocation. So translocation, Translocation. Translocation is the movement of sugars, through the phloem of a plant. Okay? Something that's important here, before we finish, a bit of extra information. Translocation happens in both directions. Transpiration streams move from the root up the plant, whereas translocation happens in both directions. So we can say happens in both directions from the leaf. Lovely. So the phloem is a tissue specialised for transporting sugars from the leaves to the other parts of the plant. Sugars are made in the leaf by photosynthesis and transported around the plant to cells that need them. The phloem cells are placed end on end, which have holes in them like a sieve. They allow sugars to move through, but not necessarily other molecules. Phloem cells have cytoplasm but no other organelles, therefore each phloem cell has a companion cell with which it shares its organelles. Translocation is the movement of sugars through the phloem of a plant, and it happens in both directions from the leaf, so the sugars move both up the plant and down the plant, whereas transpiration streams just move water up the plant. So, you should now be able to tell me what the xylem and phloem do, and you should be able to explain how the xylem and phloem are adapted to do their jobs. So the xylem has the lignin, which makes it waterproof and rigid, whereas the phloem has these companion cells, and it has what are known as sieve plates, holes in the end walls that allow sugars to pass through. One thing that I didn't mention is the phloem. An example of the phloem is when you eat a banana, you get those stringy bits on the side. I absolutely hate them, they make me feel sick. But the stringy bits on the side of a banana, that's the phloem. Okay? The xylem is a wood of a tree, the phloem is the stringy bits on the side of a banana. Don't worry about this third learning objective, we'll look at that next lesson. So hopefully you found this useful. If you have any questions, please comment below in Google Classrooms or send me an email directly and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Until the next video, take care.